Hello, and welcome to Songs for the Struggling Artist, the blogcast. This is episode 417. My name is Emily Rainbow Davis. Thank you for being here with me. I cannot tell you how grateful I am to be recording this on my actual computer. It was touch and go there for a few days where I thought I might have to record this thing on my iPad, and I bought an adapter so I could plug my mic in to the iPad. I tried it out. Wasn't ideal, let me tell you. It might have been fine in the long run, but the learning curve was going to be really steep. It just did not sound good, and I don't know all the little tricks that I know in the Mac computer version, the laptop version of GarageBand that I have been, messing around with for over a decade, at least, maybe even 15 years. I don't know, a long ass time. So I'm very, very glad that it did not come to trying to figure out how to make the iPad recording work. I wrote about this on the blog last night, but it is very funny that I'm recording this particular blogcast today, which is about how Apple is being a real so-and-so. And all weekend I have been furious at Apple for being a different kind of so-and-so. And I wrote a piece about it last night while my laptop was still in Memphis, Tennessee. I'll read that whole saga to you, and I think it's in 2 weeks. But for now, this particular one is about a whole different variety of frustrations with Apple computers. Well, Apple, the company, more than the computer. Anyway, there's kind of a whole run of tech and Apple-themed blogs right here. So there's today's, which is about apps becoming obsolete. And then next week's will be about storage, which is not actually about Apple. It does relate to my interactions, but it ultimately is about something else. So, and then the week after that will be why I thought I might not have my laptop today to record the podcast. So today's, though, is called Apple Seems to Be Getting Into My Business. When Chase Bank charged me $15 for not having enough money in my account, I switched to USAA Bank. I felt very strongly that people, and especially me, should not be penalized for being insolvent. I went with USAA because when my friends would put down their cards after a meal and discovered they all had USAA, they would all commence to talk about how much they loved their bank. I had literally never heard of anyone loving their bank before. So when Chase let me down with that $15 charge, I signed up for USAA. 22 years later, I still have the same bank, but I'm considering making a change, and I suspect general enshittification and the rot economy are to blame, but also, very plausibly, Apple. When I joined this bank, USAA, in 2002, I could not have imagined that the company that made my computer might have some role in my banking. If you'd told me that there was a connection back then, I would have been very confused. Back then, because the bank is a military bank based in Texas, most business was conducted over the phone, and deposits went through the mail. It was quirky, but it worked. When smartphones and mobile apps were invented, things got a little easier. We were able to deposit checks online easily through our tablets and phones. Gone were the days of waiting a week for a check deposit to make it all the way to Texas. Now, there was almost instant access to funds. Neat! These things were made possible by Apple and all this new tech. It took me a while to get the devices necessary, but as of a few years ago, I had this USAA mobile app on an iPad and on my iPhone. I could deposit checks whenever I wanted. Technology is a miracle. Recently, though, every time I tried to use one of these apps, it told me I needed to update my operating system in order to get the new update, in order to use the app. And yet, both my devices were fully updated. I came to understand that it was my devices that were too old for this app, and I'd have to use the web for my banking. For most things, this was totally fine. But then I needed to deposit a check. The only way to deposit a check online was through the app, and I had no app to use. I called the bank, unable to believe that in 2024, I was not able to make an online deposit. They told me they'd send me some deposit slips and envelopes. We're doing this old school now, I guess. And I don't mind a little retro time travel, but I'm pretty pissed to be booted off my bank app because my tech is too old. Particularly since my phone was new 4 years ago. We have enough phones and tablets in our landfills, thank you. And the reason I think Apple is to blame is because of another institution. So I've been with Patreon pretty much from the beginning. Like everyone, they've got an app now because, as I learned from the man who coined the term inshitification about tech developments, apps are how companies can get around data privacy restrictions. No fault of Patreon's, but everyone's got an app and they're always trying to get you to download them instead of just taking care of your business on the web. Anyway, apparently, Apple now wants a cut of Patreon's profits that come through their app. And Patreon is restructuring their whole paradigm because of these fees. Apple is dictating a whole new business model because of their dominance over apps and phones. Because of my experience with Patreon, I suspect that the reason I can't deposit a check online anymore is because Apple is charging my bank too much to support older tech. I also feel fairly certain that Apple is trying to get us to buy new phones by making our old ones obsolete through the apps. I asked the web support person at my bank what my options were for online deposit now, and it was get a new phone? And if I hadn't said, do we have to do paper deposits like it's the 20th century? I'm not sure this service rep would have thought of it. It's handy to have been around for 22 years, so we know how they used to do it. But I'm pissed about it. I'm pissed at my bank, and I'm pissed at Apple. I'm pissed at Patreon. Still the best way I can make a living, become a patron. And I'm pissed at the government for not breaking up this Apple monopoly stranglehold on our technology. After 22 years, I might switch banks so I can bank like it's the 21st century. After 4 years with an iPhone, I might switch back to Android because, come on. It really does feel like everyone is trying to go out of business. Whenever I talk to a human at USAA, they thank me for being a loyal customer for the last 22 years. This time, the second person I spoke to wished me a belated happy birthday. There are reasons to stay, but niceties may not be enough if the technology is going backward rather than forward. Not everyone has the latest model of the iPhone or iPad, and I resent like hell being pushed off a perfectly usable piece of tech. The landfills are full enough of these things. There has to be a different way. We're going backwards, and not in a good way. There have been periods where I don't have that many checks coming in, or like I'm not getting paid with checks, I'm getting paid with cash or whatever. And then for whatever reason, like in the last few weeks, it's just been like all kinds of people who used to pay me in cash are now paying me in checks. And of course, the other thing that is going on is that there's all this like postal theft that everyone has warned us about. So it is not a great time to be putting checks in the mail. USAA, by the way. I still haven't switched banks because like it's a lot of trouble and I have to figure it out. But I am feeling quite ready to do it. Maybe I'll actually make the effort. Anyway, reason number, however many numbers to be suspicious about Apple, right here. And I have still yet not figured out what's really going on with Patreon, what I actually have to do to keep things normal over there. It's not clear. Like I got in there to try and fix it, and I was just like, I don't know what's happening here. So it's got to happen this month, and it will. And I will keep you all informed if I learn anything that the general podcast audience should know about what's going on with Patreon. They did just send out a survey about the issue, so I did let them know that I was not keen, nor did I really understand what the heck they were talking about, and I pleaded with them to please leave things as they were. I do not know if I'll be heard, but what the heck. And hilariously, because I didn't have my laptop, I was trying to do a lot of different things on my iPad, which meant I discovered there were all kinds of apps, not just the two aforementioned that had become obsolete. I went through this like really funny cycle where I would open the Spotify for Podcasters app, which is where if I had to upload the podcast from the iPad, that is where I would have done it. Anyway, I clicked to open Spotify for Podcasters, its very own special app, and it said, update your app. And so I clicked on update your app, which then took me to the App Store, where the app would say open. So then I would push on open and it would go back to the Spotify for Podcasters app where it would say update your. Anyway, I went back and forth because it was just like this ridiculous circle where nothing would happen. And on the app in the App Store, it was like, you are updated 6 days ago. You're fine. But then I noticed, I think at the top of the page, that it required a higher level number to work. And so yet another obsolescence, which is whatever. So again, another reason to be glad I have my laptop again, because this is not cool. These apps just like not working anymore. It's not cool. Yeah, I've lost a lot of them, which for the most part is fine. I don't, I'm much happier to do stuff on my actual computer. But So, what song am I going to give you? Well, I looked at songs about apples because Apple. And it's funny. It's funny. Like, apple is such a common word that like you do a search for it and you're like, oh, it's a food. You don't necessarily get led to the company. I don't know if that's like a benefit to them, and it must be. It must work out. They're doing fine. In any case, I looked at a lot of songs about apples, which are not ultimately about this issue. But I couldn't find anything that was just like really on the nose. So I'm going with a song called One Bad Apple, because Apple is being bad. And this song is so interesting because if you didn't know who was singing it, you would think it was the Jackson 5. It sounds like the Jackson 5. The song itself sounds like the Jackson 5, and in fact was written by one of the Jacksons. I can't remember which one. But it is not the Jackson 5. It is, in fact, the Osmonds. And let me tell you, I went on a little bit of a little journey learning about the Osmonds, because to me, the only Osmonds I really knew about were Donnie and Marie, I think because of my age. So the Osmonds were before Donnie and Marie, and they were like a boy group, which is why they sound like the Jackson 5. And this song was like their first big hit. They're a Mormon family, and very white, of course. And they have had the most bizarre, interesting careers. I was fascinated. And one of the articles I read pointed out, like, these guys have never had like a revival. Like, they were apparently really, really popular in the early 70s. And like, there's like no nostalgia for them whatsoever. Like other bands that were, equally cheesy or whatever have had their moments, but these guys just like, it's never sort of come back around, which I find fascinating. Also fascinating, if you would like to be surprised, and maybe this will not be a surprise if you live through this moment, but the Osmonds in the 70s, like later than I think this song came out in 70, 71, something like that. A few years down the road, they decided they were going to write their own songs. And they wrote a song called Crazy Horses. And I'm going to suggest that you Google Crazy Horses by the Osmonds, and you will not believe it. If you already have an idea about who the Osmonds are, you won't believe it. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, it's not going to mean anything to you. But this song is astonishing and reported to be a favorite of Ozzy Osbourne. So I found it jaw-dropping. So please enjoy Crazy Horses by the Osmonds. I will not be singing Crazy Horses. I'm going to sing you One Bad Apple. And I will do that for you in just a moment. Meanwhile, thank you so much for listening. If you like this podcast, please tell someone about it. Like, review, subscribe, all the things you can do for a podcast. Do it for me. I would really appreciate it. If you would like to support this podcast, amazing. Patreon.com/Emily R. Davis. I am figuring it out. It is still the best place to support me. I know there's issues, but everybody's got issues. Believe me. And I know no place better. So that's the top spot, but there's also Ko-fi, there's PayPal. You can do like a membership thing on Ko-fi as well if you want to like set up a regular thing the way Patreon is. You can do that on Ko-fi. There's also PayPal. There's Substack if you would like to join as a paid subscriber. I'm trying to do a better job of keeping up with posting on Substack. I'm generally behind myself over there. But if I had any paid subscribers over there, I would be better about it, I promise. So if that's your hesitation, know that you could make a change. And if you know of a better place or any place that you like to support artists, I'm happy to get on them and become an artist that you support. That would be amazing. Mostly, I thank you all for listening. It is the best. Thank you, thank you. And links for all those things are in the show notes. Just one more thing before I play you One Bad Apple. Just something about the phrase. So we use this idea of one bad apple not spoiling the whole bunch. But in fact, the original phrase was that one bad apple does spoil the whole barrel. So it is an extraordinary shift in language and use. And the truth is, yes, one bad apple can spoil a whole barrel, both literally and metaphorically. One bad apple makes a lot more bad apples, generally. Certainly in things like the police force, where this phrase is used all the time. And certainly in the example of Apple, the corporation, behaving badly, I feel like, first of all, they're a monopoly, so they are spoiling many things in that. It's like one enormous apple. But also, like, they spoil the chances of other younger, more, nimble companies. They spoil other companies bad, like their behavior gets bad too because Apple's behavior has to be bad. Like here Apple is literally spoiling both my bank and my support network. It's actually spoiling quite a lot. This song is talking about that from a different point of view. It's a love song fundamentally, and believes that one bad apple will not spoil the whole bunch. But it's clear that it will. So, but what the heck? It's fun to sing a song called One Bad Apple by the Osmonds. Anyway, please enjoy One Bad Apple. I can tell you've been hurt by that look on your face, girl. Some guy brought a sad thing to your happy world. You need love, but you're afraid that if you give in, someone else will come along and suck it to you again. One bad apple don't spoil the whole bunch, girl. Give it one more try before you give up on love. One bad apple don't spoil the whole bunch, girl. I don't care what they say, I don't care what you've heard. I could make you happy, baby, satisfy you now. But how can I if you won't give me a chance to prove my love to you? Won't you just give me one little chance? One little chance now. I'll give you love's guarantee. You won't be hurt again. One bad apple don't spoil the whole bunch, girl. Give it one more try before you give up on love. One bad apple don't spoil the whole bunch, girl. I don't care what they say, I don't care what you've heard. I've been noticing you, baby, for a long, long time. I'm not ashamed to tell the world you really messed up my mind. Girl, to me, you're like a dream come true. Dream come true now. I'd rather hurt myself than to ever hurt you. One bad apple don't spoil the whole bunch, girl. Give it one more chance before you give up on love. One bad apple don't spoil the whole bunch, girl. I don't care what they say, I don't care what you've heard. One bad apple don't spoil the whole bunch, girl. Give it one more try before you give up on love. One bad apple don't spoil the whole bunch, girl. I don't care what they say, I don't care what you